Welcome to the Flore, fantasy and sci-fi lore. We are diving into Season 8 of The Witcher. We are going to talk about Milva and her backstory and how she came to be among the Dryads. We are going to talk about Geralt and his choice finally not to be neutral. After 3 seasons and years of him beating that drum, he has finally changed his mind. And of course, we are going to talk about Ciri and her choice in the name of Falka. And a lot of that we actually covered in the previous episode. So if that is what you're looking for, you want some deep dive lore here, go ahead and dive in and roll the intro.
Do you remember the first story that was so spellbinding that it drove you to break the rules and stay up all night? To keep reading, keep listening, keep playing? So good you forgot your life, you lived there?
So good that the moment it ended, you asked yourself, what next?
Welcome to the Flore. Our goal is to take you back, take you deeper, to explore and understand more, and relive that childlike wonder.
Join us as we dive deep into humanity's greatest stories, no matter how they are told, through books, movies, television, even games.
One of us does an in-depth research on our topic. One of us is familiar with the topic.
And one of us knows nothing. So the right questions will always be asked and will be addressed for anyone coming into the topic, regardless of how much you know.
Enjoy another world, another adventure, another spellbinding story. Join us on the Flore.
This is the finale.
This is the season finale, yes.
This is the final Henry Cavill as Geralt.
Yeah, this is the last of Henry Cavill, yeah. So, heavy. All right, Aaron, you had some wild points to guide us through?
Not so many for this one. So I'm going to let you take the reins on this one.
All right, so at the beginning of this episode, well, I guess we've seen her a few times. We're going to meet her a lot more. We meet Milva. This is a human woman that is living among the Dryads, and she came to the Dryads and asked them to take in the s3e8, and she is kind of working on becoming a Dryad herself so that she can forget her past.
And what's the s3e8?
The s3e8, this is the group of elves who just want to kill humans. Currently, they work for Nilfgaard. Yes. But they're really just in it to kill humans, right? That's why they're here.
That murderous elf group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
gotcha. They're the ones who killed all the babies?
Kind of. The s3e8 is a separate group. So it was Francesca, the elven mage, who killed all the babies.
Okay.
But she works with the s3e8 a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, they're often fighting together. And the s3e8 will definitely listen to her because she's kind of in charge of all the elves.
Gotcha.
But that wasn't necessarily a s3e8 thing. So Milva's human name is Maria Bari. Milva was the name given to her by the Dryads. And so she was born in Upper Sodden. So Sodden Hill is where that big battle takes place. So the northern part of that kingdom there. So she comes from a long line of hunters. However, initially, her father didn't want to train her. He was training her older brother, and she's like, you're a girl to just get married and have babies. But then her brother dies in an accident. Her father ends up training her to be a hunter because the family will need one when he's too old to do it.
Okay, out of necessity.
Yeah, he remarries, he gets sick, he dies, and then the guy her stepmother marries, their stepfather was always making sexual passes at her, so she just left one day. She's like, I'm done, and just takes off.
Yeah, good for her.
And so eventually she stumbles onto Brokilon and met the Dryads, and since she was a young woman, they took an interest in her, because if you remember, like, there's 2 ways you make a Dryad. You either get a human to come in and impregnate existing Dryads, or you catch young women and feed them the water of Brokilon, and that's how you get human. That's how you get more Dryads. So they were interested in having her come into Brokilon because she was a young woman.
And she was probably out hunting, right?
Yeah, she was probably out hunting when she stumbled into Brokilon. So the human cities around Brokilon had started to get more aggressive. They started hunting Dryads. And because Milva was still human, they would send her out to recruit a band of humans to hunt Dryads. And then she would lead them into an ambush.
Oh.
And the fourth time she was the sole survivor, they got super suspicious about her. And so...
Fool me once, huh?
Fool me twice. Fool me 3 times.
So at that point, they tried to kill her, and she escaped, and then she couldn't do that for the Dryads anymore. And then when the war broke out between Nilfgaard and the North, she started working with the s3e8.
Okay. And this is her kind of backstory.
Yeah, so that's her backstory. So there are a lot more things, but I think they're going to come up, and I don't want to give spoilers. But yeah, so that's as much as her backstory as I'll go into here. And so Geralt finally hears about Ciri being alive. It's the lie, right? It is that the Emperor of Nilfgaard is going to be marrying Ciri, but it's actually Terran. But that gives Geralt hope, and he finally agrees to let them heal him, because now Ciri is out there and he can go and rescue her.
What's wrong with him?
He has his leg broken, his back broken. He's severely beaten by Vilgefortz.
His mind broken.
It looks like Ciri dies, and so he's just kind of given up. But he now knows she's alive. He's willing to let them heal him. The water of Brokilon doesn't work because of his mutations and resistance to magic, but they are able to help him a little bit, enough that he can start doing better. And then Yennefer goes to Skellig. So if you're way back, let's go way back to when with Calanthe. Calanthe ends up marrying a guy named Est, who becomes Cirilla's step-grandfather, and he is the king over Skellig. And this is mentioned a few times, like even Geralt tells Cirilla she could go to Skellig, to be safe, but they'll just marry you off as soon as they can to make an alliance, because that's what kings and lords do with princesses.
Especially ones they don't have real affiliations or connections with.
No, they do it with their daughters all the time. Like, you get a daughter, that's what you do. You marry her off to get an alliance, right?
Yeah. Old money.
And so the vassal states of Skellig are getting ready to join Nilfgaard if Ciri marries Emhyr. And so this is kind of one of the big points why Emhyr is marrying Taran/Ciri, because he gains all of these allies to help him fight the North. So not only that, but Skellig has the largest fleet on the continent. So he gains a massive naval advantage by marrying Taran. In search for Ciri, Yennefer goes to Vilgefort's castle with a bunch of other mages, and they find the monstrosity that Geralt killed. And they cast a spell to disentangle the bodies so that they can bury the individual girls.
Oh, that one. The one in the cave with the voices and their faces.
Yeah, that creepy creature.
The flesh mound.
The flesh mound, yeah. Fringilla and Francesca meet with Emhyr. These are the two mages. She's the black lady and the leader of the elves, those two mages. So they want Cintra for the elves again. And Francesca always calls it by its elven name, Cintra, before the humans took over it.
Zentra rather than Centra.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the elven name for it. And in exchange for that, they're going to prevent the North from using the ports along the Yaruga. There's a big river that runs through the middle of the continent called the Yaruga, and Cintra is right there on that river. So it's a really important place of transposition, right? That's why, and Sodden is just across that river, which is why it was such a big point, because it's a chokehold. They've got to come across the bridge.
Okay.
So that's what that's about. And then, of course, Dijkstra meets with King Vizimir, who is furious at everything that's been happening. And he wants someone to blame for the huge debacle with the conclave and everything. Like, it was just a mess. So he is going to blame Philippa for this. And so he wants Dijkstra to take care of her because she made this mess and she's responsible. And this way, it's not Visimir's fault. It's not Dijkstra's fault. It was Philippa. She's a mage. She sided with the mages and ruined all their plans. So the commoners, which isn't really a thing. He says it, but it's not. It's so the nobles won't blame him, right? Dijkstra is in love with Philippa, and he trusts her. He doesn't turn on her. Instead, he offers her the knife to kill him, and then he'll take the blame. And Philippa's like, she's like, you're an idiot. I've got bigger plans than that.
That's not what we're doing here.
Yennefer has a conversation with s3e8, wherein s3e8 admits that the hysterectomy that she required of the girls at Aretuza was never about magic or beauty.
We've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, it was something she created to fight against something that the men were saying, that women couldn't be great mages and leaders because they would always have divided loyalties to their children. And so s3e8 is like, she says, if this is the reason they won't entrust us with power and leadership, then if we don't have it, it's not a valid excuse. And so that is why all of the girls she trained had to get the hysterectomy.
Okay.
And she realizes this was a mistake. And then she dies.
How's she dying?
Oh, man.
She commits suicide, actually.
Oh, wow.
It's important to make sure people know.
So it's deep regret.
Yeah, she really thinks this was a really big mistake. Because at the end of the day, right, the men aren't saying that because they believe it true. They want their power and they don't want to share it. And that's the excuse they have at the moment.
Right.
And if you satisfy that excuse, they come up with another one, right? Like
Right.
That's the way of the world.
Right.
Sure is.
Somebody who doesn't want to do something will always find an excuse. That's
We will.
They want to cling on to as much power as possible, right? And that's their justification. And if they don't have that, they'll find a different justification.
Should we take a break here?
Yes, let's take a break here.
All right, we are in our final season. We've been going over quite a few things here in the beginning. I was really surprised the way that you said she died, that she had committed suicide after admitting this unnecessary castration of her tutors. I thought Yennefer was going to kill her. That's what I thought was when you guys were talking about
you
that.
You could see that coming.
Yeah, I was like,
that.
Yennefer hears about this and she says, okay, the person who took away the one thing I want in the world is going to die now. But let's see, what were we covering? We were covering the Dryads,
the flesh mound.
The flesh mound.
The intent, yeah. We met Milva and her little backstory.
Milva, that's her name. That's right. Yeah. All right. So how do we wrap this up? What comes together here?
So, Philippa's plan is that she finds Radovid, and Visimir has just been fighting against Dijkstra and Philippa so much they're just like, we're done. So Philippa has her assassin kill King Visimir, and they crown Radovid King of Redania.
Oh, this was the smooth talker.
They're like, look, you won't be the puppet we want. We'll replace you with a puppet who will do what we want. We're sick of it.
Huge shift in Redania.
And they make it pretty clear that if needed, they'll replace him.
Letting him know he's on loan.
It's on loan.
Yes. Then Yennefer returns to the north to form a new magic leadership, and Geralt is healed enough to fight, and he leaves to rescue Ciri from Emir, even though that's Terran, and he doesn't actually know where the real Ciri is. Okay, and then Ciri, who was at the end of the previous episode, was captured by the mercenaries. We see she is tied up in a room with a bunch of these mercenaries, and another individual named Keely, and this is where we meet the rat. So we do know Netflix is doing a spin-off series of them.
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
I'm not going to go into a lot of lore there because they are doing that, and that would be spoilers for that spin-off.
Gotcha.
Keely and s3e8 escape. The rats come in. They fight off everybody. And then s3e8 fights an individual one-on-one and kills him. It's the first time she's killed anyone. And then at the end of this, they ask her name, and she says Falka.
Oh, yeah.
As in the lady in the desert who was pushing her to do all these terrible things.
One tiny spoiler, sort of. Just to be clear, the rats are a group of humans. They're not actually rats.
Yes. So the rats are a group of bandits.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Bandits aren't humans.
They are-
Good differentiation,
They're
Joe.
late teens, early 20s. And this is a group that s3e8 joins. So, and we have met one of the rats before in a previous episode, just very briefly. She saw s3e8 fight the wyvern.
Oh, the baby wyvern? Where she's like, no, you're being mean to it. Don't abuse it. And then she murders it. Yeah, that standard s3e8 behavior.
And then we see Henry Cavill's final battle as Geralt of Rivia, as he cuts down a whole patrol of Nilfgaardian soldiers.
Doesn't Jaskier be like, no, don't do it, and then he does it?
And then he does it, yeah. But the whole thing about this final fight is that Geralt has been about neutrality and just keeping your head down and surviving. And in this fight with the Nilfgaardian soldiers, he makes it very clear he's not neutral in the war anymore. He has picked a side.
And he's on side Nilfgaard?
No, he's on side against Nilfgaard.
Right. It's kind of
his
gearing
side.
up to everyone versus Nilfgaard, right?
It's actually Geralt versus everyone.
I mean the war that's on its way.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's it for The Witcher. Any questions?
So they end it with a battle between humans again. Because he's such a monster hunter. I would think finales end with a monster. But
Well, yeah, that's why he killed the Nilfgaardians, because they're monsters. That's why he picked a side.
Well, I think that's the whole thing. He's not killing monsters anymore, right? He is picked a side in a war, and now he's fighting people.
Which is a big change. I wouldn't say it's like a step, like positive or negative, but it is a big change from killing the wrong monster from, episode 1 of the first season.
Way back in
Now he,
episode 1 where he kills the wrong
like,
creature. Yeah.
chose willingly to murder a bunch of Nilfgaardian soldiers.
okay. All right. So I got one question. Earlier you had said the way s3e8 gets out of the desert, she gets dragged out by some mercenaries. Do they drag her through a portal?
No, she's been making her way to the edge of the desert.
So she really got like 98% of the way there, but Joe gave them all the credit, even though she did all the work. She basically fell asleep right outside their encampment, and Joe was like, yeah, they did all the work.
Okay. So she wasn't in another realm. She was still on the continent.
Yep.
Okay. And then s3e8's magic is all Elder Blood magic now. But we haven't really seen what that is, other than maybe when she would scream and the earth would split. That was Elder magic, I take it.
Yeah,
Does
that
she
was
always
the
have
old
to
blood.
scream to ignite her magic?
Well, the whole point of her training with Yennefer is so that she can control it, right? Instead of it just coming out when she's having an emotional, overwhelming moment. All right. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed these episodes and The Witcher, and we hope we've given you some more insight into some of the lore and the creatures and everything, and have helped you enjoy them more. And we hope we'll come back next year, or I guess whenever they release the next season.
We'll see you guys next season on this.
Or we'll just play all the games and talk about those.
Right.
You never know.
And then we're going to be diving into some Baldur's Gate. So if you played Baldur's Gate 3, there is, or I guess if you played 1, 2, and 3, there is a piece of adventure that takes place between Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3, and that is Descent into Avernus, and that is where we are going next.
See you in hell.